Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we have a little bit of news and updates regarding Shadowlands. Earlier today, they put out and they being the Warcraft dev team, put out a Shadowlands development update for October. That's just the way they titled it. And it hit on three major points: the Maw, Conduits, and class and covenant balance. Now, these all were good things to hear, everything they talked about. The community took it a little bit different in certain ways than I thought. Mostly positive on the Maw update, mostly negative on the Conduit update, and then skeptical on the class and covenant balance, which is, the skepticism is fine, in my opinion, there, but maybe not the negativity, but the skepticism is fine. So let's go through it. First of all, the Maw changes that they plan on making. So the Maw currently, if you don't have the beta yet or haven't played beta yet, the Maw is very just like this desolate place where you don't really know what to do. Like, you'll get like a quest from your covenant to go there and collect souls or do something to help your covenant out. But other than that, you don't really have any direction there. When you kill stuff there, you get this Stygia, this currency, and you can go to the vendor you find because you do a quest with him. But you don't really have any idea. There's really no direction at all of what to do. It basically currently requires you just to go around exploring things, killing them, and figuring out what to do. Now, in a lot of ways, that's okay. The only issue is that it is somewhat tied to power in that you can get your sockets and whatnot there, like added sockets and stuff. So, or just like the upgrades for your conduits as well. It's a like a hard way to upgrade your conduits that lets you get around the RNG of the drop rates. So because of that, they've decided to make it a little bit more directed. So though there might be things on the map popping up that show you that there's an event happening. Think of in the attacks in Oldham and in the Pandaria area, the valley. Think of that. So with the invasions of the Enzoth or whatever. So think of those, how you have those events to do, whether you're pushing the things in the Oldham or killing a kind of a rare enemy, then clicking on the obelisk to disable it. All those events, or jumping into the blood pool thing and clicking on the things in there to cancel it out. All those activities there, think of those, how they're marked on your map and whatnot. That's kind of what I see with this, is kind of just having these events marked on the map in some way, and that way it gives you a general idea. So this is a great change overall. The only negative comment I've seen was just people saying, just let us mount there, just let us mount there. Now, I get it. I actually get why they don't want you to mount there, because they just want you to. It's the same reason why you couldn't fly on Mechagon for a while and stuff like that. Like, you had to use the special thing. They kind of just want you to. It's sandbox style or whatever, and they just want you to experience it. And that's their feeling for it. There'll probably be items that let you fly or move really quickly. We already know that there is a mount that drops that you can ride there on a mount. You just have to get it first. So it's supposed to be like its own contained environment. So I get it. I'm fine with the no mounting thing until you get the mount and just having to use items to move faster and stuff. I'm fine with that part of it. I'm fine with this change. Overall, really great change there if they're able to implement it. And it doesn't seem like it would be something that's too hard to implement. So I think it's fair not to be skeptical there. So on the conduits, this is kind of if I was just going for clicks or something, this would be the one to lead with. So conduits are a very beleaguered system, and which is somewhat okay, right? So it's fine. I normally push back on the hatred, but this is where I wanted people to focus their stuff, not to pull the ripcord, not get rid of covenants. It's just fixing conduits. So many people probably know that they changed conduits already once, where you could reset them once per week. Now, this is not enough for example, a full DPS class or a complete hybrid class. Now, for maybe like a demon hunter that only has 2 specs, it was kind of okay once you had 3 soul binds. However, at the beginning of the expansion, you're not going to have 3 soul binds anyways, so it becomes doubly bad for those classes. And then even a class that only has 2 specs, it still becomes a problem then, because you only have the 1 soul bind to start off with. So they decided to make a change to this, which is good. The change is good. and I'll talk about the negative feedback about it. So instead of resetting a week, now every time you change a conduit, it takes 1 energy. You start with 10 energy, and every time you change one, it takes 1 away. So if I then like, oh, I'm using my AoE conduit for this dungeon. I have a single target raid boss tonight. I only had to switch 1 conduit, let's say, for my spec, and I switch it out. That costs 1 energy. Now tomorrow, that the reset time, that energy refunds to me automatically. So now I'm still at 10 if that's the case. Now obviously if you're doing more things, you might go PvP, you might use 2 energies to do that. So it will somewhat limit you. You'll want to get your you'll want to get the bang for your buck, I guess. Like you don't want to be like, okay, I'm going to do a mythic dungeon, then I'm going to do 2 games of arena, then another mythic dungeon, then do my raid, and then do more arena after. That with this current system, I don't necessarily think it'll stay this way. Maybe it will, but you want to be efficient with your changes at least, right? That's kind of the thing around it. Now the good news is, so people had talked about it feels really bad if you get an upgrade of your conduit and you can't even use it because you already did your switch for the week when it was just the once per week switch. So if you do get a upgrade of a conduit, so a new conduit, and I believe even if you get a conduit of higher rank, that will refund you 1 of your energies to let you swap it in. Now I believe that gives it to you either way. So even if you don't want to swap, you at least get another energy, and you can do a different swap later on if you wanted. So that's a good part of it. So this allows this. What this will do is, if you're really efficient with your playing, and you're not just jumping from thing to thing, then it'll be no problem whatsoever. And for most people, this current energy system will be no problem whatsoever. This is it's not perfect by any means. I've been okay with the freely switching conduits. I think that's fine. I think it's like essences, it's like azurite, it's like whatever. You should probably be able to freely switch them in this case. So I've been behind that. So I'm not going to complain about anybody saying that they want to freely switch it. But this is literally 10 times better than what it was before. To shit on it is not really the best approach in my opinion. I think it's better to make arguments of why it should just be a freely switching thing for conduits. The first thing you have to do though is stop the get rid of covenants thing. Just start focusing on just let us freely swap conduits. Conduits are like azurite, conduits are like essences, conduits are like talents, and they really are in some ways. And I think that's the argument you should be making, and stop trying to lump it in with other things either. Because this is a really big one for, it won't affect me hardly at all, but this is a really big one for a lot of players that I understand and, I feel for. So let's try to get this one freely swappable, or increase the energy. If they're just really stuck on having some sort of system, let's get them to bump up to 15 or 20 energy. And then everyone will be fine. And like, you refund 2 every day instead of 1. 20 energy, you refund 2 a day. I think everyone would probably be pretty much fine with that. So obviously at that point you might as well freely swap. But I guess the reality is they just don't want you swapping between bosses. Okay, that's pretty much the reality of it. And they need to stop gearing the content towards the high-end community. But that's really the crux of it is, well, we don't want you to swap conduits between every single boss. Maybe if you go to a new progression boss, you change, but not every single boss. And I do get that actually. But I think we could expand it a little bit more without allowing them to swap it between every single boss. So let's focus on that. Let's stay positive on that. Stop bringing other negative things into it, and let's focus on getting the conduits fine. And the last thing they talked about was just class and covenant balance. They basically are just saying that keep testing it, keep letting us know what you think. And we're working on the balance issue. They didn't give any specifics here. Again, this is met with a lot of skepticism because they've had trouble balancing things in the past. Understandably, the skepticism comes, and we're just going to hope for the best as far as balance goes. I believe overall they will, because I think they're going to come to the same conclusion that I came to now months ago, that they just need to make all the powers fairly weak. And there's certain powers that you can scale up more because they're more predictable. Yes, they're going to have different effects for different classes and different specs, but certain things are just a little bit more predictable than others. For example, something that gives you 5% verse or something like that, is generally going to have the same effect on most characters. Not exactly the same effect, of course, but it's generally going to have the same effect on all characters. So there's some things that are more controllable, make it work more like that, and then, or straight damage things or whatever. And I think that'll be a better way to balance things out. Make them weaker, make them not be, your main source of damage like they were with some specs at some points. And I think that's what they will eventually figure out as they nerf the ones that are way out of whack. And they'll be like, okay, we just need to kind of make them all kind of a little bit weaker. Like, not weak enough that you don't want to use it, of course, but just not to the point where it's like, oh, I just need to press this one button and that does all my damage. So it's that. I think they'll come to that conclusion as well. We'll see. They obviously have more time to come to it now. Everyone should get on the beta if you have it, test things out. I myself wrote out a long thing on Rep Paladin that got really good reception by the Paladin community. And I just encourage everyone else to do that for their class and spec as well. Put it on the forums, make it look very professional. Don't say things like stupid ass Blizzard and stuff in your thing, because that just makes someone not read it. And if our goal is to make it better, then you have to act a little bit more professional, a little bit more grown up when you're doing it. So that's my 2 cents on that, I guess. But yeah, that's it for this video. A little news update there. Please subscribe to the channel because that helps me out a ton. And other than that, everybody have a good one.